Let's talk about one single battle in the American Civil War. It took place over just 2 days, but in about 48 hours, it made every major navy on Earth completely obsolete. Seriously, this is the story of two very strange revolutionary ships that changed naval warfare forever.
Okay, so picture this. Hampton Roads, Virginia. It's March 1862. For hundreds of years, naval power meant one thing: wooden ships with big cannons. But over these 2 days, that entire era came to a sudden, violent, and honestly, pretty spectacular end. This one showdown between two experimental warships forced a global military reset.
So how did we even get here? I mean, a battle this big doesn't just pop up out of nowhere. It was actually born from a huge strategic problem the South was facing, a war of blockades that was threatening its very existence.
Pretty early in the war, President Lincoln ordered a massive naval blockade of all southern ports. They called it the Anaconda Plan, and the idea was to literally squeeze the life out of the Confederacy, cut off its trade, its supplies, its connection to the rest of the world, and you know what? It was working.
The geography right here is absolutely key. Hampton Roads is like a natural bottleneck, and since the Union controlled Fort Monroe right at the entrance, they could seal off the whole area. This trapped the Confederacy's biggest navy yard and cut off major cities like Norfolk and Richmond. So for the South, breaking this blockade wasn't just some strategic goal, it was a matter of survival. They desperately needed a miracle weapon.
And that miracle weapon? Well, it would turn out to be an iron monster, born from the ashes of a Union failure.
See, when Union forces had to abandon the Norfolk Navy Yard, they tried to destroy their own ships, including a steam frigate called the USS Merrimack. But they kind of botched the job. The Confederates managed to raise the burnt-out hull, salvage the engines, and then they built something terrifying right on top of it, a sloped iron-plated fortress. They gave her a new name, the CSS Virginia.
But you can't build a secret weapon like that without rumors starting to fly. Word of this Confederate superweapon reached Washington, and he kicked off a frantic race to build something that could fight it.
The Union's answer came from this brilliant but pretty eccentric Swedish engineer named John Ericsson. His design was so bizarre, so completely out there, that a lot of Navy officials were like, no way. It barely stuck out of the water, and its main feature was this massive rotating iron turret on top, holding two gigantic cannons. Seriously, nothing like it had ever been seen before.
Let's do a quick tale of the tape here, because these two ships couldn't have been more different. You've got the Virginia, this repurposed brute, basically a floating fortress with 10 fixed guns and a huge iron ram welded to its bow. Then you have the Monitor, this sleek, new, radical design, a precision instrument with an 8-inch thick turret that could aim its two monster guns in any direction. It was like a sledgehammer versus a rapier. Two totally different ideas about naval combat were about to go head-to-head.
All right, the stage is set. On March 8th, before the Monitor could even get there, the Virginia steamed out to face the Union's wooden blockade fleet all by itself.
You have to imagine the sight, the slow, smoking iron beast just chugging towards the Union fleet. It completely ignored their first shots and went straight for the USS Cumberland. And it didn't just shell it, it rammed it, punching a hole the size of a carriage in its wooden hull. The Cumberland went down so fast, its crew was still firing their cannons as the water closed over them.
The Union sailors, they just watched in absolute horror. Their heaviest cannonballs would slam into the Virginia's sloped sides and just bounce off, sparking and skipping harmlessly across the water. All of their best weapons were suddenly useless. It must have felt like fighting something from another planet.
With the Cumberland at the bottom of the bay, the Virginia just calmly turned its guns on the USS Congress. It hammered the ship with red-hot cannonballs, setting it on fire. The Congress burned for hours, until its ammunition magazine finally went up in a massive explosion that lit the entire night sky. 261. In just a couple of hours, the Virginia had killed 261 Union sailors. It was the worst defeat in the history of the U.S. Navy up to that point. A truly stunning and bloody introduction to this new kind of warfare. When the news hit Washington, D.C., it caused absolute panic. I mean, total chaos. Lincoln's cabinet was terrified. The Secretary of War, Edwin Stanton, was convinced this iron monster was going to steam right up the Potomac River and start shelling the White House itself. It honestly seemed like nothing could stop it.
But overnight, the Union's last hope finally arrived. As the sun came up on March 9th, the Virginia steamed out to finish off another Union ship,
only to find this strange, new little opponent waiting for it.
That's really how a Confederate sailor described the USS Monitor, and you can see why. It was so low in the water, just this flat deck and a round turret visible, it looked totally alien. Some of them thought it was just a boiler tank being towed. Boy, were they about to get a surprise.
And what happened next was history. The first ever duel between two ironclad warships. For about 3 hours, they just circled each other, pounding away at point-blank range. The sound must have been deafening, this incredible clang of massive shells hitting thick iron plate. But neither ship could seem to land a killing blow. The armor on both just held.
So why was it a draw? Well, it came down to a few key things. The Virginia was armed with explosive shells because it expected to fight wooden ships, not the solid iron shot needed to punch through armor. Meanwhile, the Monitor's crew was nervous about their brand new cannons, so they used reduced powder charges, which weakened their shots. The fight finally fizzled out after a shell exploded right on the Monitor's pilot house, temporarily blinding its captain and forcing it to pull back.
So in the end, both sides claimed they won, but the battle itself was pretty much a stalemate. The real impact, though? Oh, that wasn't in Hampton Roads. It was in every Navy department across the entire globe.
And here's the really ironic part. For all their world-changing impact, neither of these ships even survived the year. The Virginia was sunk by her own crew just 2 months later to keep it from being captured, and the Monitor, which was never built for the open ocean, sank in a storm off North Carolina on New Year's Eve.
So at the end of the day, who won or lost that fight on March 9th doesn't really matter. That's not the point. What mattered was what the battle proved, and it proved, without a doubt, that the age of the wooden warship was officially over.
The consequences were immediate and massive. The great naval powers, Britain and France, they literally stopped all construction on their wooden-hulled ships overnight. This wave of what they called Monitor mania swept the world as every country rushed to build their own turreted ironclads. This single battle in Virginia led directly to the modern battleship and redefined sea power for the next 100 years. And all this leaves us with a pretty interesting question for today, doesn't it? In our world of autonomous drones, AI, and cyber warfare, what's our modern ironclad? What's the one piece of technology out there right now that could, in the blink of an eye, make everything we think we know about military power totally obsolete?